In this video, I want to talk to you about the very real issue of suicide in teens. And this is one that can be a little scary for a lot of us. We might want to kind of bury our head in the sand and not think that our teenager would ever contemplate ending their life. But suicide is a very real issue. And I'm talking to parents out there, and I'm also talking to youth leaders and mentors. I really want to help you guys think through what is the strategy for helping the teenagers in your life that you may fear could be suicidal or maybe has already even had an attempt on their life. Here's something to kind of set up the conversation, which is pretty daunting and sad, is that suicide in the general population has significantly decreased over the last few years, but among teenagers, it's more than tripled. So there's something going on. I want you to also check out my video that I talk about teens and depression. That gives you some signs to look out for depression and also some helpful tips of just how to walk with your teenager with depression. So this next piece then is really with suicide. So this is for the teenager that is kind of gone beyond just feeling depressed. And this is a person that has contemplated the thought that maybe it'd be better to not be here anymore. And I know that for those of you out there, whether you're a parent or a youth leader or a mentor that cares about teenagers in your life, this would be something that would be tragic and scary, and none of us want that to happen. And so in this video, I'm just going to give you some helpful signs to look out for if the teen in your life may be struggling with suicidal thoughts, and what should you do as an adult to try and help them through that. Okay, so here's just a few signs to look out for. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but the first thing that you would want to be looking out for is just signs of depression, which again, like I said, I'll link the video that I talked about teens and depression. I go more in depth on some of those signs, but just seeing that your teenager seems very depressed and despondent, not engaged, lacks hope, very hopeless. Another thing, teens might start to verbalize people wouldn't miss them if they were gone. That's also a sign that maybe your teenager is at least thinking about suicide, not that they're close to making an attempt, but they might be thinking about that they wonder if they would even be missed. They wonder if people would even notice if they were gone. Another sign might be that they start giving things away. For teenagers, you might think, well, what do teenagers really have to give away? But if you start noticing that they're giving things away to friends that were things that were important to them, things that they cared about, that could be definitely a concerning sign that they're contemplating ending their life. Here's a really big one. If your teenager has expressed not only they wonder if they'd be missed, but they actually even could articulate a plan, that's when you definitely need to be taking notice. That's when action for sure needs to happen right away. If your teenager has thought about, if I were going to end my life, even if they talk about it in a hypothetical, this is how I would do it, that should be cause for concern. That if they have a plan, and if you're listening to that plan and it's a feasible plan, you know that the parents in the home have weapons, or if you are a parent listening to this, you know that your teenager could get a hold of a gun if they wanted to, or pills or something that are in the home or could be readily accessible to them, that is definitely cause for concern and needs immediate action taken. So for any of these signs, you immediately want to have a conversation. You immediately need to sit down with your teenager. If you are concerned about suicide on any level, don't worry that having a conversation is putting the idea in your teenager's mind. It is much better to err on the side of caution and to say, listen, I'm going to sit this teenager down and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about, here's what I notice and changes in behavior. Here's the signs that I see that I'm worried about. Talk about the statistics on teens and suicide. And by the way, that stat about 3 times as many people are committing suicide as teenagers, that doesn't even include the statistics on kids that have tried to commit suicide and failed. So this is a big deal. This is something that's happening at way bigger numbers than maybe we've ever realized. And so having an honest conversation, talking openly with your teen, again, if you're a mentor or a youth leader out there, this is when you need to make sure you're talking to the parents. If you've had a meeting with, or you're sitting in a small group setting and a teenager in your group is sharing some pretty troubling things and is talking about suicide, then you need to pull that teenager aside right away, have a conversation, be honest about your concerns, and then you need to talk to the parent that night about what you're worried about. Again, as the youth leader and mentor, you only have so much power in the situation. The parents in the end are going to have to make decisions, but don't fail to give the parents all the information that they need to make the right decisions. So remember, you need to start with an honest conversation. And here's the next thing that's really important for parents and youth leaders and mentors out there. Listen to what your teenager's expressing. honor them by listening, not trying to tell them how to think, what to do, or don't think that way, or that's dumb. Just listen to what they express about why they're sad, what they're worried about, why they don't think their life matters, why they feel like nobody would care if they were gone. Just be a listening ear that gives them value for how they feel, because a teenager just wants to be respected for their own emotions and thoughts and feelings. And even if you don't agree with it, and even if you think some of it's silly or sounds dramatic, listen, your teenager is experiencing what they're experiencing, and it's real to them. So show them the respect that you're willing to listen, while also hoping that they're listening to you. Here's another great thing. In that honest conversation, as you're talking with your teenager and you're listening to their heart, share your own struggles. All of us have had hard times in our life. Maybe you've even struggled with depression yourself. Perhaps you've even had times where you've contemplated suicide. But just show them the honor and the respect that you can relate to some degree with your own history, your own stories, that could just make your teenager feel like, okay, I'm not alone in the struggle. Other people feel depressed sometimes. Other people maybe have contemplated suicide. Share your story, open up to them, be vulnerable about that. And then, of course, pray for your teenager, share God's word, share the fact that God collects our tears in a bottle. He knows our pain. He doesn't want us to be in pain, and he certainly doesn't want your teenager to feel like their life doesn't matter. So pray for them. Pray that God will show them the truth of his word and their value in Christ and in God. Pray also for you to have wisdom and discernment in those conversations. But cover your teenager in prayer. Cover yourself in prayer. And the last thing I want to say again, this is for the youth leader and the mentors out there. Talk to the parents. And even if that feels like, well, gee, isn't that going against confidentiality now that teenager's never going to talk to me again? Listen, when it comes to matters of suicide, you have to just be able to say, hey, kiddo, I love you, and I know that this might feel unsafe or unfair that you've divulged information to me. Maybe you haven't talked to your parents about it, but listen, I love you enough and I'm worried enough that I have to take the risk of breaching that confidence, because I would never want you to do something to harm yourself, and I didn't do anything to stop it. And so even though that could be a hard conversation, listen, youth leaders, mentors out there, parents need to understand the seriousness of things. And if you're seeing signs, if you're hearing signs of suicide or just depression, you need to let the parents know. So listen, these are just a couple of things, certainly not exhaustive. And again, professional help needs to be on that list. If you have any concern about your teenager with suicide or depression, get professional help. Let them kind of analyze and help add insight into the situation. Let them talk to the teenager and help them have coping mechanisms and to work through whatever those issues are. Professional help should be a part of that equation for sure. So use these tips and use these questions below and have a conversation. Again, if you're a youth leader team, if you're working in a youth group setting, talk about this as a group. If you're a mentor, talk with some other people that you respect about it. If you're parents, use those questions, have a conversation, use this information to be helpful to you as you walk with your teenager and protect them from making a devastating choice, thinking that suicide is better than living.